What is going on YouTube? Kronos here, and welcome to Soulworker. So, I know it's kind of crazy, right? If you guys have been following my Twitch channel, you notice I've been playing this game a lot recently. I'm actually having quite a bit of fun with it. But I did notice that there were a few things about the game, a few things I kind of wanted to tweak and mess around with that honestly, when I looked around, I didn't really see anyone talk about. I didn't get a lot of information about. I just kind of learned about it randomly on my own. So it's not gonna be a very long video itself. This is basically just gonna be a few tips that I found to make Soulworker just run a bit smoother for me and make my gameplay experience that much more fun. But as I'm sure most of you guys are, if you guys are new to the channel, hey, my name's Chrono. I do content over here on YouTube daily, primarily PSO2 content, but we are going to start dabbling into other basically action anime MMOs or just general games or all together. But I'd really appreciate you guys, if you are new here, tossing a subscribe on the channel is super appreciated. And hey, if you like seeing new content, if you guys are from PSO2, you like seeing new content, like the video, let me know that you guys enjoy this sort of stuff. So again, this video isn't going to be too crazy long. It's going to be fairly straightforward. We're not going to do anything too insane. I'm just going to be going over a couple of settings, a couple of things that I changed personally when I started playing Soulworker, because I'll be honest with you guys, it makes a huge difference. So first off, if you're loading up the game for the first time, just a couple of things to mention. First off, the game recently just popped back up again. These are servers that, to my understanding, are being run by the original developers of the game itself. So, not as many problems as previous versions of the game had. I know with GameForge and things like that, the game was not that great. It was a bit crazy with some of the costs of certain things that were going on. But one thing to mention is that there are two versions of this game on Steam. You want to make sure you're downloading the one that is dated May, I think 12th or something like that, May 12th, May 13th or something along the lines. It just says Soulworker. It doesn't have Soulworker action MMO game or anything like that, or action anime MMO game, just Soulworker by itself, if that's what you're looking for. Because I know some people are like, oh, wow, Soulworker's all of a sudden back. I've had a ton of people pop up about that in the comments of my videos, as well as over on the Twitch channel itself. But next thing is, once you load the game, it's not crazy for the game to take a long time to load. Even for me, when I know my computer is fairly well optimized, and I even have the game installed on SSD, it takes like a solid, I want to say 2-3 minutes just to open, which seems a bit insane. It does take a while, so if your game's taking a while to open, don't worry, that's happening for literally everyone. I'm sure they'll optimize the client at some point, fingers crossed. I don't really know the company that well. I'm fairly new to the game itself, so hopefully they figure out what's going on with that. But it does seem like they have quite a few things going on and they're working on some stuff. I know earlier we had some issues where I couldn't even go into a mission because you couldn't temporarily teleport, so that was a problem. Anyway, we're looking at the character select screen. I only have my one character, running Erwin. I'm sure most of you guys would have guessed it. Yes, I play the dual wield character. Those of you guys who know my channel well know that that's just how it's going to be. But the first thing I want to talk about as far as a bit of optimization is the settings at the start. Pretty plain. I actually thought these were the only settings that were available for the game itself. I was wrong, and we're going to go into that in just a moment. This is just the base setting stuff. Make sure you have this set to what you're looking for. I always play, full screen windowed, all that good stuff. Nothing too crazy there. I also turned down the shadow quality. I left everything else kind of turned up, and then of course I just left this alone as it was. One thing, or first bit of optimization, is your channel selection. So this is like your default channel. One thing I've noticed is whenever you log into the game, you can change channels once you're in a zone, but when you zone, it goes back to your default set of channels. So for example, there's like 5 East channels and I switch to a West channel temporarily. When I switch zones, it defaults back to an East channel. So keep that in mind. I know when the game first launched, if you were on an East channel, it was ridiculously saturated. It was super laggy. You had to move to a West channel to make things not be annoying. So for a while, I had my default set to West. But either way, I would just go wherever things are working best for you. Sometimes if you're in a channel that's not the greatest connection for you, it tends to lag a little bit and it's kind of annoying. But it's better than lagging an insane amount, not being able to do anything. So we're gonna leave it on East because East has been okay for me, and then we're gonna log in. But I'm gonna cut for a second here because you guys can't see me putting in my secondary password. All right, dope. Once we have our secondary password in, let's click OK and log in. So like I mentioned, this is just gonna be talking about a few settings, and I'm surprised, honestly. It's funny enough, there's a lot of settings I absolutely want as a PSO2 player in Phantasy Star, that Soulworker just has them. Like, it just has those settings already, and I was really surprised to find them. A lot of things that I've been talking about that it's like, hey, look, this should really be in like most every action game similar to this, it was actually in Soulworker, so I was pretty surprised. But let's open up our settings. Let's go to System, pop up in the settings. So as you can see, settings are drastically more fleshed out when you're actually in game. One thing that I did love is you can scale the UI down, makes things much nicer, so not everything is in your face as much. These are all on by default, but there's a couple of things to mention here. First off is you can change what names are displayed consistently. I'm probably going to try messing around with this a little bit more, but basically it's just kind of like an on or off sort of deal versus you and your league. So basically if you have, like, say, league name on, you can opt out only seeing people that are in your league or hiding everything. Kind of wish there was an option for this for friends, but you know, it teaches their own. Character name, of course, again, you can opt out of seeing everyone else's names unless it's people that are in your league, or just opt out of all names in general. She might just switch that to everyone that's, or just everyone in general, honestly. See how I like that. And then titles, of course, you can hide as well. A lot of the people are probably wondering, like, why bother doing all of this? For one, this stuff displays in missions, so if you're doing multiplayer, it's just more clutter on the screen, and I personally just don't like it. It's up to you individually what you want to go for, but I found extra floating text tends to slow things down in most games, so I just go ahead and get rid of it as much as possible. You also have the option of turning certain things on and off. So NPC names being on is fine. I'm probably going to leave those on. That's pretty standard. Own damage. So my damage appearing on the screen, my damage numbers, totally fine to see. My own attacks, totally fine to see. But I don't need to see my allies' damage numbers, nor do I see my allies' attacks. Honestly, I don't care about what they're doing specifically. I care about what I'm doing on the screen. So I want to make sure those are turned off. Some people might opt to have it a little bit differently, and we can talk about that in just a minute. But I don't want to see all of that extra stuff in my screen itself. I have to turn on, you know, FPS just because I wanted to see what it was like while I was testing some things, which you guys can see right there in the top left-hand corner. Boop. So that's pretty cool. You can turn off, of course, login notifications, league login notifications. That's totally fine. I opt to turn off camera shake and camera output skills. So what these actually are and what this means, essentially camera shake is pretty self-explanatory. Your camera shakes whenever like large smashes and things like that happen. I'm not a big fan of that. It's cool from a cinematic perspective, but eventually it just gets annoying. The camera to output, or the camera to output skills basically is the cinematic camera whenever you're using skills. So you can essentially turn that off and you don't have the camera like kind of rip around whenever you're doing certain skills. Again, really cool from a cinematic value, but actually in play when you're playing consistently, it kind of gets annoying after a while, and it can also cause you to like not be able to take scope of your surroundings and see what's happening around you. For example, say you're popping your your awakening or anything along those lines. If you're using that and you have it set to camera output skills, then you may not be able to see the giant attack that's getting kind of charged up right in front of you because your character's, I mean, it's doing the whole cinematic cool looking thing whenever this is activating. So I turn all that off. I'm not a huge fan of it, so that's super cool there. Or that makes things really easy to kind of keep up with there. I believe that was mostly everything there. The only thing I changed up was under graphic settings. So in graphic settings, you can go ahead and turn off a couple of things. I personally don't like motion blur. I don't know why this is an option in games that it just turns on automatically. But again, this is probably something that's more cinematic. Some people might like motion blur. I turn it off. Wow, stutter a couple more times. Glow, again, I turn off. I'm actually gonna try leaving glow on for a while. Anti-Aliasing, I believe, was off by default. I actually had to turn it on, which is a bit weird, but yeah, that's totally fine. And this is a big one here for me. Output ally player effects. Skills showing off tons and tons of like crazy effects in the screen is not something I'm a huge fan of. I want to be able to see what's happening, especially in situations where I'm fighting melee style bosses and things like that. Now granted, I'm not super far in, like I'm not to the point where I'm fighting crazy, really difficult stuff, but part of the way I like to get used to a game is still try to play the best of my ability. And part of that is not having a bunch of clutter and extra stuff in the screen so I can't see what's happening with the bosses. So I turned that off personally. Again, that's up to you, but it made basically things a lot easier for me to see, even through my own effects. Granted, I can see my own effects, but like whenever I have someone else extra with me or anything along those lines, I can see my own effects properly and stuff like that. So I turned it off personally. And then everything else is kind of just the same. I left everything else as is. Of course, there's sound settings. Last thing I'm going to mention, though, with all of this, I don't think this, yeah, this is, oh yeah, I did forget one thing. Under controls, so a lot of people early on don't realize you can actually sprint at all times. Actually, can I move around right now? I cannot move around right now. But double tap to sprint is a thing. However, double tap to evade is also a thing. Turn off double tap to evade. So that's just kind of annoying. I would go ahead and have that turned off. And I believe this is turned on by default, but orient attacks to camera is also important. Essentially what it means is it doesn't matter what way your character's facing, as long as your camera is facing the correct way, your character just kind of snap to where you want to go. It just depends technically on the individual. It might be easier to use it based on gamepad or it might be easier to use it based on character if you play gamepad. But again, your mileage may vary, just depends on what you feel most comfortable with. That's mostly it, I believe. I'm double checking just to make sure I haven't missed anything. Of course, mouse sensitivity is a thing that's pretty self-explanatory, but that really would be about it. Oh yeah, and when you save, this might not happen for everyone. For me, the whole game kind of freezes for a second. Don't freak out. This is kind of normal. Again, I'm pretty sure this is just a thing where their client isn't super isn't super optimized just yet. They're trying to figure some stuff out. So you'd think it would be after the game's been out for so long, but hey, sometimes just deal with a couple of growing pains. But that's really about it, guys. I don't want to make this video too crazy long. It's already been longer than I actually was looking for it to be. But I do plan on doing one other video when I get a little bit more experience under my belt. I am not someone who's played Soulworker heavily in the past, so I do want to research a couple of things as much as possible before I make any content for it. That way I'm giving you guys the best information possible. Anyway, guys, thanks for making it all the way to the end of this video. As always, like on the video is much appreciated and absolves your half your ad block guilt. The other half is absolved by subscribing. Both are completely free and they do help me out a ton if you guys want to keep up with content as it goes live, especially since a lot of you guys are probably coming over to Soulworker, or as a lot of you guys probably don't know anything about PSO2, it may be something you can jump into. So make sure to click on that bell icon to be notified of the community posts as well as when videos pop up, or join us over on Discord or follow me over on Twitter, be notified of streams as they pop up. Thanks so much for watching, guys, to the very end. Wow. Maybe I could start it like 5 more times for the end of this video, but thanks for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, and gang, don't forget your comments. Take care. Peace out.